Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Rezolve AI. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have failed to hold here the area of support that would have allowed us to track a potential 5-wave move to the upside, which actually gets to completion a possible 1-2 setup from a bearish perspective, where in the wave 1 we have an initial 5-wave move to the downside. Now we have our 3-wave correction perfectly into the 78.6% retracement before our more significant rejection has occurred. And in that case, we can even go actually quickly through what we have been tracking in the previous video. But yeah, there has been too much weakness. We were looking for a possible larger wave 4, in which case we may have been able to salvage this chart and form this wave 4 in white. Yeah, we were looking for this larger retracement in wave 4 in orange, and even though we have pushed here into the area of resistance, clearly something more bearish was going on, and the pressure continued in this direct movement to the downside, which we haven't necessarily been tracking in a direct way, but it wasn't necessary either, because we were still looking for lower prices and we have pushed into the area of resistance that we were tracking. Now, with that said, this isn't the interpretation that I'm tracking anymore in this ABC structure. It could still be a working count in the end, but it is not something I would personally focus on right now, and instead I would even actually go ahead and remove these interpretations that would allow us to track this larger 5-wave move to the upside, since clearly it failed, and all that I can really track right now, well, it would be here a larger ABC pattern, which could work for the orange interpretation of the larger ABC, or even a 1, 2, 3, and then I could also be tracking it as part of an initial wave 1 to the upside, but this is a very, very low probability interpretation. I don't have any realistic hopes for a setup in this area, yeah? Even though we can track an area of support for this supposed wave 2 in white, it is not a trade setup in my opinion. This is just an area to watch out for a further confirmation that this structure is going to extend to new all-time lows. And we can even look here for potential targets for a wave C that could be forming in this area to new all-time lows, and in that case we would be looking at the 100% extension of the wave A, which is right around the 63-cent level in this case. Yeah, we are looking for an ideal target for this wave C that we expect to form to the downside at the 63-cent level at the 100% extension. Although keep in mind, as I always say, we don't need to get there, and certainly we don't need to stop there. That is just an ideal target. But the main concern is that right now this could actually form into even a 1-2 setup, in which case we could follow to the downside in a wave 3, and the ideal target for a wave 3 is the 23-cent level instead, the 138.2% extension. And not only that, after forming here a wave 3, we would actually expect to form here a 4th and a 5th and push even lower afterwards. Now, with that said, I wouldn't be surprised if we are to form in this area a relief rally once we have our initial 5-wave move to the downside complete. And this is actually crucial to form an initial 5-wave move to the downside to actually be able to track a third wave down. Yeah, if this only manages to form here an ABC structure, well, it could work out within the wave C, but not within the third wave. And in this case, we can be looking and even tracking here an active count, where I would even assume that the third wave could be complete. I wouldn't fully go ahead and say that it is complete, because still we haven't pushed too far out of the actual low area that we have formed, but we have here a resistance area we can track for this correction in the wave 4 in orange, which starts at the $3.2 level and goes all the way up to the $4.9 level, where as long as we hold below this area of resistance, I would be watching out still for a 5th wave very easily to come to the downside and take us to new lows and form this larger structure in a 5-wave move that could be our initial 1-2 setup from a smaller time frame perspective. That would be actually the next level of confirmation that this structure is overall going to head into new all-time low territory. And again, I want to mention this multiple times in this video because it is extremely important. I am not looking for a high probability setup here for this 1-2 scenario in white. For me, it is just a signal that if we break here below the 78.6% retracement, we should expect even more likely a full breakdown. Yeah, this is not a trade setup. This is not an area I would necessarily recommend looking for positions in. And maybe if we form here from any of these levels in this area an initial larger 5-wave move to the upside, sure, we could be looking for an initial A-B setup or even a 1-2 setup in some cases, but it would be only in the context of that interpretation of that initial 5-wave move to the upside. Not without any such interpretation would I really be looking for a trade setup on this chart, at least not right now. And here in the very short time frame, well, what else could we look for? As I was saying, I'm not convinced that this wave tree is necessarily complete, but I do have the possibility of tracking a full ABC structure in this area, which means I don't need any additional lows. And across the market, we are looking for a larger movement to the upside on many of the stocks. And sure, this seems to be taking a small part in it, but so far with what has formed so far, yeah, we haven't even gotten to the first level of resistance, and yeah, there is still a lot of weakness because I also don't have an initial 5-wave move to the upside, so I'm not tracking this as a 5-wave move. I would rather consider this a tiny wave A, a wave B, and a wave C, and I could be looking here for a potential A, B, C that could take us into the actual resistance area. But again, neither this is an actual trade setup. This is also a decently low probability interpretation, although I wouldn't be surprised from a large time frame perspective because I would expect to get into the area of resistance. But from a smaller time frame perspective, again, I don't have a 5-wave move up. I don't have a confirmation that this overall pattern to the downside, this overall wave tree has formed the bottom, and in that case we can again still track this area of support. However, between the $2.7 level all the way down to the $2.5 level at the 78.6% retracement, but again, with the caveat that this is not to be taken as a trade setup, this is to be taken as a potential path that we could take into this correction in the wave 4. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.